This is the Alfred Daily. Stay safe, Shaftesbury.
It's Thursday, the 28th of May. I'm Kerry Jones. Shaftesbury Primary's head teacher outlines plans for pupils' safe return next week.
I wouldn't open the school if I didn't think that the risk was low enough for us to be back in it.
Get ready for waterworks in the Donheads.
To give customers good quality and a reliable supply, we replace the water main.
A Shaftesbury man urges at-risk locals to use volunteer shoppers and not venture out themselves.
Let them do it for you.
John Rutter on the Roman road that once cut across the Shaftesbury-area.
From Ludwell to Bath.
We've our test of local knowledge, Where in Shaftesbury with Amber Harrison. Rachel Diment goes orchid spotting on Fontmell Downs.
So we're very lucky to have them here.
And a blackbird on Winkham Lane, recorded by Nick Crump. Hello, I hope you're well. Wessex Water are planning to improve their pipeline serving parts of the Donheads. Shaftesbury-based Rich Mullins is an engineering technician with the utility company. Earlier this month he presented the plans which should reduce the number of leaks and improve water pressure to Donhead St Andrew Parish Council.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're replacing all the water main that runs through Overway and Milkwell. It's ageing water mains that are there at the moment. So what we need to do is to give customers good quality and a reliable supply, we replace the water main.
Have they had issues with the water not being reliable?
Yeah, what we've had in the past is previous bursts. So a burst is when the water pipe will break up underground and cause customers to lose supply. It also means that it can sometimes cause disruption to the road. We have to close the road. It can cause flooding and issues when the water main does burst.
Is there a reason for this happening? Is it just the age of the pipes?
Yes, it is. So what we do in Wessex is we have a mains replacement sort of scheme. Every 5 years we replace mains, and this is just one of the ones that was identified. And the water mains that are there were designed, a long, long time ago and not really as fit as they could be for today's sort of usage.
So are these old sort of Victorian pipes then or something?
There's an old cast iron pipe out there, so it's it's probably fairly old. We don't really have a date on a lot of things like that.
Does this pipeline serve people in other parts of the Donheads?
It does go on somewhere else. So it comes from the Donhead Reservoir, which is right on top of the hill near Berwick St John, and it flows across, goes through Milkwell, which is the lower part, and then it feeds onto the other Donheads.
When will you do the work?
Starting on Monday the 17th of August, and then the completion date is for around the 6th of November, but we're doing two separate closures. So we're closing Overway first from the 17th of August for 6 weeks, which is the top road, and then from the 28th of September we're closing Milkwell, which is the bottom road. And then there's a footpath which links Overway and Milkwell. Now that's closed for the entire period that we're working. The emergency services obviously will have access at all times. If they come across a road closure, we've got road plates we can put down to cover holes to allow them through. And obviously with the bin collections, we're going to collect the bins on the bin day in our tipper van, take them to a designated point, and then the bin lorry will collect them from there, and then we'll drop the bins back at the end of the day for customers.
Is the water going to go off?
So water will be maintained most of the time. There will be some supply interruptions. What we're going to do is we're going to use a technique called pipe bursting, and that minimises disruption. So we'll dig a hole. We fit a big machine with some metal rods. We push the metal rods through the water pipe when the water's turned off, and then we pull it back the other way. So we go 95 metres, then we stop, and we pull brand new water pipe back through. So there isn't holes all across the road everywhere, and there's less, landfill waste because we're not digging so much road up. And the whole time we're doing that, the customers will be on what we call an overland supply. So we set a temporary water pipe up on the road surface, and we connect everybody onto that whilst we do that.
You've been to talk to the parish council. I guess they were happy with this.
So I think it was last Friday on a Zoom meeting. They all seem very happy. Customers I've spoken to whilst I've been out in the area have also seemed quite happy. It is investment in the area for the people that live there, and it will improve pressure and flow, certainly for the houses on Overway Lane, where in the past they might have noticed a drop in pressure because of the old water pipes.
So the result of this will be much better showers in parts of the area?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And much better hose pipes if they need to water their gardens and things like that. It makes things a lot easier for everybody and for us, because we won't have to come out and repair it every 5 minutes.
Dorset Council has been given £9.1 million from the Department for Transport to make our highways and byways better. The money's meant to improve journeys for cyclists, pedestrians and drivers with repairs to local roads. According to Dorset Council, it will also seek to lock in environmental benefits seen through the lockdown. Councillor Ray Bryan, who looks after highways and travel, says the cash is much welcomed. The council say they'll be able to carry out more resurfacing and reconstruction work because of the money. It's not clear which Shaftesbury-area projects, if any, will benefit, but some of the cash will go towards drainage improvements and road stability works between Wimborne and Cranbourne. The Shaftesbury Scrub Hub volunteers have been busy sewing hospital workwear from donated fabrics in the partnership project between the Town Council, community volunteers and Shaftesbury School. They've donated a large number of chefs' jackets, aprons, hats, scarves and flannels to the Westminster Memorial Hospital. There are enough for the staff, the cake bakers who volunteer with the Friends, and spares will go to Blandford Hospital. And the staff at the Abbeyview Medical Centre say they're grateful to Johnson Stallbridge Linen for continuing to offer a free laundering service for staff scrubs and hospital gowns. Mr Punch's Market used to be a record shop. The building was also once an undertaker, and soon, according to social media posts, it's going to be a barber's. Twarbers is relocating from the High Street to the location at the corner of Bell Street and Mustons Lane. If you're working on your own in your business at the moment and feeling perhaps out of sorts, a little bit lost or lonely, you might benefit from joining the North Dorset Business Group. It's free, they're social, they network, they share business leads and exchange great ideas for more efficient or profitable operation. And the next meeting's been held on Zoom on the 9th of June at 6 p.m. Carl Wilson from CW Marketing will be talking about digital and web-based marketing. If you want to be part of it and want to network with other businesses around Shaftesbury and surrounding areas, then you can email Fran Hill at gillinghamguide@btinternet.com.
Hello, it's time for today's Where in Shaftesbury. We're asking what links a golden cockerel and an arrow with a flag behind it. Think you've got this one covered? Keep listening. Find out later in the programme if you're right.
This is the Alfred Daily.
Across England, some primary school pupils will return to lessons next week, and one local school, Shaftesbury Primary, has been working hard to make arrangements with social distancing and safety measures at the forefront of their plans. On Tuesday, reception pupils return, followed by Years 1 and 6 on Wednesday. Headteacher Paul Lavis says throughout the lockdown, children of key workers from this and other local schools have been accommodated at Shaftesbury Primary.
And so we had children from Shaftesbury Abbey, Mopcombe Primary and Fontmell St Andrews together with ours. We've had a mixture of children at the hub since the pandemic began.
I bet that's been a challenge in itself, just with teaching the different age ranges.
I guess one has to be careful with the term teaching because it's been very difficult to do any teaching in its formal sense. In the hub, we had a reception group, and then we had another group that had a range of children from Year 1 up to Year 3, and then another group with a range of children from Year 4 to Year 6. And so there's an element of grouping there, as you can tell, but actually teaching, in inverted commas, effectively across that kind of age range. In some smaller schools, it's what happens every day. But it was a challenge. It became more of a childcare plus arrangement, shall we say. All of the schools, for example, Kerry, had been setting work for their children anyway to be completed at home. And so what we did as part of the hub was we gave some time during the day for those children of key workers an opportunity to complete their learning tasks.
How difficult was it pulling that off at such short notice?
Staff in schools and leadership and governors and so on, we find things out at the same time that everybody else does. So we don't get a heads up. When the words left the lips of the Education Secretary on the day where he was saying, schools will close from whatever it was it March the 20th, I think? Then very quickly followed up with, but will remain open for. And then suddenly, the caveats start to fall into place. And we had to be creative. But luckily, we've got a lot of like-minded people in the area, and the heads certainly in the other schools were very keen to work together to see if we could put together some sort of provision that would be, more effective perhaps than having to keep 4 different buildings open and so on.
Why do you think it's important that kids do go back? Because there's some people that might be wondering why schools are opening anyway. Why not just wait until September?
I don't think some of those thoughts are without merit. But there's no doubt that the longer children are apart from each other, the easier it is for their social skills, if you like, to sort of dissipate ever so slightly. As an adult, you've got decades and decades of practice at learning to get on with people and how it is to behave around others and learn about social nuances and so on. We're looking at this very much from a point of view of sort of not so much about educational standards, but about opportunities and experiences that we can give them that's going to help them move forward when hopefully things return to some sort of normality.
Some parents, I'm sure, will be concerned about safety. So what have you done in terms of social distancing or implementing guidelines to make sure the kids who return are as safe as they can be, and the staff for that matter?
The rhetoric seems to be that children are affected less or seem to be affected less by this virus. But of course, you've got grown-ups who are more at risk, it seems. The concern and the safety of our staff is every bit as important as it is for the children. And so, the measures that we've brought in have been designed around keeping everybody safe, and particularly the grown-ups. We have a bubble protocol running at the school from Tuesday onwards, which means children will attend school in a bubble, and they will only exist in the school in a bubble, which means there will be no more than 15 children in a class space. They won't mix with any other bubbles or any other classrooms across the school. They'll come to school and leave the school within that bubble also. They will play at lunchtime and break times in that bubble, and there will be a reduction of the number of grown-ups that interact with that bubble. And so, that's taken quite a lot of organisation, as you may imagine. There's an element of cleaning, obviously, that needs to be done. We've got a great cleaning team. I've had a meeting with the head cleaner where we've had to get into the nitty-gritty of how to clean a chair and tables and the walls around the room and the doors and handles and all that kind of stuff. Keypads, the lot, just to make sure that we're absolutely doing what we need to be doing to keep the place clean. There's a restriction of movement around the school. And so, for example, none of the children will be using the inside shell of the school building. They'll be using classrooms, making use of the outdoor spaces that we've got, but the corridors are out of bounds. The school library and the IT suite and all of that kind of stuff is out of bounds to minimise the risk of people leaving traces of virus anywhere. We've got staggered starts to the end and the beginning of the day.
How different will times be?
We've split children up into panels of A, B and C. So there's an A panel in year 6 and an A panel in year 1 and so on. Children who are in panel A will start school at 8:45, but they'll finish at 3:05. For those who are in B, we'll start 5 minutes later, 8:50 in the morning, and we'll finish 5 minutes later in the day, for example. And then that way we can minimise the group movement through the school. So there should never be more than, there shouldn't be more than a bubble moving around at a time. And again, children will begin and end the day by entering through particular gates. So again, our reception children will come through a particular gate, whereas our year 1s and our year 2s will come in through another gate and so on. Again, thinning out the number of children and bodies that are in any particular area at any one time.
How confident are you that the kids are going to stick with this without a huge amount of policing, or are you just going to have to do that? Make sure staff are there to make sure that these rules and the guidance is being followed?
Yeah, there's an element of that, of course, but the difficulty is, and in your educational purists would have taken a sharp intake of breath when you use the word policing. What you don't want to do is to create an environment in school where children are frightened or scared or any more anxious than they will be already at having not been in school for 2 months or listening to the news and hearing about a killer virus that's out there and so on and so forth. So we do what we do in schools, which is, we tread softly, but we're very careful. And we just make sure that what we've set up is absolutely clear to the children what's expected of them. Our children behave very well. And our behaviour policies have worked for years and years. All we had to do really is adapt those behaviour policies so that children understand that there are some new rules around that they absolutely need to stick to, and that they will be reminded if they need to be, because they've gone beyond the rules. We have our procedures to follow should some of those rules not be followed, and that means that we need to do an extra set of cleaning, for example. There'll be friendly reminders. There'll be plenty of signage up around the place. We can turn it into a challenge and something that the children can be successful at. And if nothing else, it's a learning opportunity. I mean, this situation isn't going away quickly, and who's to say that it's not around for years and years to come. And this is an ideal opportunity for us to teach them the new skills that they're going to need to learn to help them be successful, wherever happens in the next 12, 18, 24 months.
I take your point about my use of the word policing. I come from a different educational era, the sort of Grange Hill years.
Yeah,
but
so did I.
Your plans seem really comprehensive. Are you at all worried or concerned about what could happen with the potential risk of the virus, albeit small, here in North Dorset, or do you feel that you've pretty much as a team nailed it in terms of your response?
I don't think I'd be doing my job and be in the position I was if I wasn't worrying, and worrying probably most of the time. And there are illnesses and viruses that aren't coronavirus, but that are around day in, day out. And there are standards of cleanliness and behaviour and sickness protocol at work that you follow to minimise the risk of things spreading and people becoming ill. The extra anxiety with coronavirus at the moment is it doesn't seem to have hit Dorset quite the way that it's hit everywhere else. And there's that anxiety of, if there were to be a spike or increased cases, certainly in the area, what does that mean? I see in the news today that there's talk of potential localised lockdowns should local spikes occur and so on, which makes me feel slightly better. It's not the same as chickenpox, and it's not the same as measles, and it's not the same as anything else. However, these illnesses are around. And there's always a chance that children are going to catch them and spread them. And there are some people who are vulnerable to illnesses all the time. It's just that I think, coronavirus seems to be something that spreads very quickly and easily if you're not following the guidelines. And as long as we stay within those and we're diligent in what we do and we stick to the plans that we've put in place to mitigate the risk, I don't care what anybody says, I wouldn't open the school if I didn't think that the risk was low enough for us to be back in it.
Paul, Dorset Council have said they're not going to fine parents who decide not to send their kids to school when the classes restart. Have you any idea of how many youngsters may not be attending because of that?
Reception year 1, year 6, you're talking nearly half the size of the school there, and with the key workers and other children that we've got coming in, we were anticipating just over half of the school body to be in. It's not quite reached that number, so I'd say we're just about maybe over a third of our children will be in by next Thursday. But I think that will change, Kerry. I think as the word gets out that actually, some of the measures that sound a bit strange to begin with about one-way systems for dropping your children off and, starting earlier and going home a bit earlier and those kind of things. Once people realise that it's doable and a safe place to be, I think more people will take up the offer of coming back to school.
I've heard praise of Shaftesbury Primary for the homeschooling and how you've kept parents supplied with what they need. Yep. Will that continue for any of the parents who decide that they're not happy at the moment about sending the kids back to school?
It will. What won't happen is quite the interaction that happened before, because all of the teachers at the moment will be coming back to school to work in classrooms in one shape or form. And what they won't be able to do is be at the end of their keyboards or their iPads throughout the day to be able to respond to the queries and the questions from children, way that they have done for the past 9 weeks. So there is no doubt that being asked to welcome children back in smaller class sizes inside these bubbles has an impact on everybody else who's not actually on the inside of the school building. And there's genuinely nothing we can do about that. If in the next couple of weeks the guidance changes or the tack changes in as much that the government then want more children to come back to school before the summer break, then we've got an issue, because we don't have enough rooms to be able to divide all of the children into half. and teach them, in which case our provision would have to change at that point. We're thinking about, rota systems and so on, where you've got one group in one day and a group in the next. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for us to provide for everybody. But as things stand, all teachers and all the staff are involved in all of the classrooms from Tuesday working forward, which means that is going to have an impact on those who are still learning from home.
Are there going to be logistical challenges with provision of lunch?
I don't know if you know it, but at Shaftesbury Primary we have a kitchen where hot school meals are generally provided, but we're not going to be able to do that. So in order for us to be able to maintain this bubble protocol, packed lunches are going to be made out of the school kitchen and be delivered around the school. And actually Shaftesbury Primary's kitchen is going to be used as a local hub for providing packed lunches to several local schools as well.
And as far as you know at this stage, Paul, is the intention that the school timetable will be retained and that the summer holidays will be at the specified dates? You're not expecting school to continue or that to be tweaked in any way?
I'm told no, that there is no change to the timetable. And I've no idea, Kerry, to be honest with you, whether or not at some point in the next 6 weeks, I'll be with my cup of tea on a night time watching the latest news conference only to discover that something new is about to happen and another plan needs to be drawn up. There are some magnificent people working in schools, and our school particularly. The staff have been absolutely tremendous, from their weekly phone calls home and the daily lessons that they've been setting for the children, or the paper packs they've been delivering, or even being out in the minibus delivering free school meals to people, which is what we were doing right at the beginning of this pandemic. Teachers that are still attending key meetings to support our family. We've got YouTube videos for bedtime stories and online quizzes and one-to-one sessions with children over the airwaves to help ease their anxieties. What the government and everybody else has to realise is that at the end of all of these government statements that are made are a group of anxious professionals who are desperate to do the right thing for their children, but are also wanting to make sure that they're keeping their families safe as well as themselves. And it's hugely stressful for them. And so, when you hear things in the news and you see things in the news about potential things over summer holidays, we've already worked all the way through the Easter holidays and so on. This half-term break is the first time that anybody's stopped, I think, in the school community since February. They've been just fantastic. Not a dissenting voice amongst them, all wanting to do the best for the children because, well, that's why they work at SPS, you see.
That's Paul Lavis, head teacher of Shaftesbury Primary.
This is the Alfred Daily. Stay safe, Shaftesbury.
As you might be aware, Alfred has been awarded the FM community radio licence for Shaftesbury and the villages. Our team were busy training volunteers to make programmes and features for the new radio station, which launches next year when this crisis struck. And that's why we decided to begin our daily Alfred Daily broadcasts. It is really a taster of what our new FM radio station will sound like. So if you're enjoying this is what you'll hear on the radio, in the car, in the garden, listening on your radio in the bath. Sometime next year. If you'd like to get involved with our project and make articles or features about Shaftesbury issues or things that you think are important, get in touch. We're training now. And we're delighted to introduce another new contributor to the Alfred Daily. Rachel Diment is passionate about our area's wildlife and flora. We join her on a springtime stroll.
And like many of you, I've been walking around the local area during this strange time and enjoying the local wildlife and flowers. But today I've come up to Fontmell Downs because I have a day off from work and I'm just enjoying a longer walk for a change. Spring's the time of year when we see some rather special flowers on the chalk downland. There are a number of native wild orchids that inhabit our chalk downlands, and they are really rather spectacular in their way. They are less showy than the supermarket varieties or the kind that you see in florists, but they're really just very small versions of the same thing. They're all uniquely designed to capture the attention of the pollinator that they want to help them, and some of them indeed mimic certain species of insect. There's a bee orchid that some of you may be familiar with, and there are fly and frog orchids. So they're all unique in their own way, but they are so small you really have to look Our chalk downland species favour sloping sites that are well drained and have little nutrient, but yet they still manage to thrive. So this morning I've seen from quite modest species. I saw the common twayblade, which is tiny and really easy to overlook, but it's just a beautiful shape and miniature version of a tropical orchid. I've seen the common spotted orchid, a helleborine, which I've yet to identify, but also rather spectacularly quite a number of examples of the greater butterfly orchid, which is rather beautiful and clear white with a little green on it. There are a number of the different species of vetch here, which are larval food plants for some of our most rare and beautiful butterflies in this country. So there are a number of them here, quite a lot of other chalk-loving plants, and including one that was quite new to me until fairly recently, a tiny plant that I initially mistook for a thyme, and it's called a chalk milkwort. It comes in either blue or pink and is really quite tiny and beautiful. So like many things on this difficult environment, they're small and you really just have to get down and look at them, get down on your knees, get down and observe them really closely. But whatever you do, don't be tempted to pick them, just admire them and take photographs and leave them there for someone else to admire, or for them to set seed and grow again. A lot of our native British orchids favour chalk slopes, such as we have here on Fontmell Down. They are very much like their tropical cousins, and if you study them closely, the petals and the shape of them are quite similar in some ways. I've already seen 4 species of orchid just in a short stretch of my walk this morning. Of course, if orchids aren't your thing, these chalk downlands are fantastic habitats for all sorts of other species. The slopes are baking hot today in the sun, but they're full of little vetches, which are the larval food plants for quite a few important butterflies. So this morning I've seen a grizzled skipper, and I've just been walking down this path and following an Adonis blue. Of course, they won't settle for long enough for me to take a photograph. They're far too smart for that. But as you see them fly past, they really outstrip all the other blue butterflies for sheer blueness. They are just almost electric blue in colour. They're quite fabulous and really a Chalk Hill downland specialist. So you wouldn't see them anywhere else, and only for a short time, so we're very lucky to have them here.
And Rachel Diment will be back soon here on the Alfred Daily. We all know that the Saxons considered Shaftesbury very important. They founded our town around the Abbey. They set up 3 royal mints. But today we'll hear about a previous civilization that made its mark on some parts of our area's landscape. Here's John Rutter.
Today we're going to be exploring Roman Shaftesbury. Now, you're probably thinking the Romans never came to Shaftesbury. Aha. Well, you're right and you're wrong. As far as I'm aware, no Romans built a road or built a house or villa in Shaftesbury itself. It wasn't important to them at that time. There was hardly anyone living around here, and the town didn't exist. What the Romans were interested in, though, was travelling to their spa. They liked to go to Bath and bathe in the warm waters, and if you haven't done it, I recommend it as a day trip. But to get to Bath, they had to build roads, because there were none before they came here. To Bath, that is. So they built a road from Badbury Rings, where they had a camp, to Bath. A man named Marjorie has investigated most of the Roman roads in England, and he has labelled the Bradbury Rings to Bath Road Marjorie 46 or M46. So if you look that up, that's how you'll find out more information about the road. But the interesting thing is, the road on the Ordnance Survey maps is very clearly marked from Badbury Rings all up through the Tarrants to Wingreen, and then down into Ludwell and the Donheads. But once it gets to the Donheads, the track, the path, the maps are silent. No one is sure where the road went from Ludwell to Bath. We know bits of it, and we can see where it went through the Deverels, but between Ludwell and the Deverels there's no remains. A lot of people believe that Romans only built straight roads. Well, yes, they built a lot of straight roads, and they liked, presumably, to show off their power because they had a lot of manpower, and so a lot of the roads are straight, like the Foss Way going from Dorset to Leicestershire, like the A1, like the A5, Watling Road. But I think that from Ludwell to Bath they didn't have a straight road, because it's very difficult to find any evidence of a straight road, and at the present time I can only assume that the road, because it's hilly, followed contours, and if that's correct, it is probably buried under existing roads which were built on top of the Roman road, and that's why there's no evidence of the Roman road.
Thank you, John Rutter. You might remember last year we spoke on Alfred about the West Melbury fire and how the Easter blaze destroyed all of Woodturner Darren Wheeler's stock and the sculptures he was making for arts displays. Darren is back on his feet with a new unit in the business park, and we'll hear how his art is progressing in a moment. But like most of us, Darren's spring has been dominated by the coronavirus response. He's voluntarily giving his time as a delivery driver as part of the Supporting Shaftesbury project, making sure that food and medicines are delivered to self-isolating locals.
Thursday and a Friday, I've been seconded to Prime Cuts Butchers, and I've been delivering their deliveries for Shaftesbury-area. Every other Wednesday, or as required, I also volunteer for the med deliveries as well. So I am part of the Shaftesbury support group that the council set up. I'm one of over 100 volunteers in the town. I am one of 30 volunteers who take it in turn to do medicine deliveries in the town and in the surrounding villages.
So you must get a feeling, Darren, of how welcomed and important your service is.
You know, all of us are very aware that there are vulnerable people that need to be isolated, and if we can help in some small way in getting the things that they need, I think we're all quite proud of the fact that we're helping.
You must find it quite gratifying.
Well, the other day I had my first thank you card from a family, some young children in a family that I've been delivering to for a couple of weeks. The young lad with the family had drawn me a little picture to say thank you, and that's incredible. So heartwarming. It really is. I try, as I'm sure all of the volunteers do, we put a smile on our face, and you make a presence, a really happy presence felt. You ask of everybody that I meet if they're okay, if they need anything else. Go from person to person, trying to brighten their day and do what you can.
Oh, and I know you're going to be really busy trying to deliver all the stuff during the day, but do you ever get a sense that people want you to stay a bit longer because they want to chat, they're a bit lonely?
There's an odd occasion of that, but that's okay because I have time. And time is the greatest gift you can give anybody at any time of the year, day, night, whatever it is. But at the moment, it's an especially important gift you can give to people. 5 minutes of your time to say, hi, how are you? The sun's beautiful today, or the birds are singing lovely. It just lifts people. And, simple kindness like that, it costs nothing, does it?
Have you seen a different side of Shaftesbury, a different side of people because of the interaction you've had with local people with this volunteering?
Well, I genuinely think that we are so very lucky not only to be in Dorset itself, but Shaftesbury in particular, because it's just a magical place to be.
How many deliveries are you doing a day on average?
Well, it's starting to dwindle a little bit now. I think people are starting to get a little bit confident and they're starting to come out of their homes. maybe the isolation is coming to an end for some people. I don't know. In fact, we're just about to knock Thursday deliveries on the head because it's gone down to about under 5. Fridays, probably 25 deliveries to various people around the town.
Do you get a sense then that people feel like they're emerging out of it now?
I get that sense, and I think that's a wrong feeling to have. I have to say, my own thoughts on this is that we still have another 4 weeks, is it, before the initial 12-week lockdown the vulnerable were put into, and really, I think we at least should be sticking to that 12 weeks before we start allowing people to go to the beach and whatnot. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't think it's possible for anybody to stick to the 2 metre distancing at all. I think that's irresponsible for people to think that they can. You cannot go into Tesco's or any other supermarket and actually stick to 2 metres. If you're stood at the card stand picking a card for Great Auntie Matilda and you're taking longer than a couple of minutes, somebody is going to walk past you, and that aisle is 2 metres itself. You're not going to get a 2 metre distance. If you're vulnerable, I think you should let these volunteers, who are wonderful people giving their time to help you, let them do it for you.
I don't suppose you've had very much time to look after your own wood turning and your crafting over the past couple of months, have you?
I've not been able to do any shows this year so far, which is obvious. I'm still making, and will continue to make, ready for the day comes that we can get back out there and start showing what we can make. You know, it's got to keep a positive head on. I have a great pair of hands, and I absolutely love making things out of wood, and I will continue as long as I can.
Darren Wheeler there, and if you could use the Supporting Shaftesbury service because you can't call on friends or relatives to pick up medicines or groceries for you, call Shaftesbury 01747, of course, 859 342.
Earlier we asked you what linked a golden cockerel and an arrow with a flag behind it. Well, they're both examples of weather vanes in Shaftesbury. Now, we've seen some amazing ones on our walks, but these are very near to each other. You'll find them outside the town hall, so if you stand and look to your left, you'll see the flag and arrow on top of St Peter's Church on the left of the town hall, and on the right, on the top of Gold Hill Gifts, you'll find the golden cockerel. Now, cockerels and arrows are apparently two of the most common forms of weather vane. The arrowhead typically points into the direction of the wind, and they're also known as weathercocks, and that's because the breadth of the cockerel is shown as the direction the wind's coming from. So I started to wonder about the first weather vane and did a little bit of research, and this is what I found. Apparently, the Greek astronomer Andronicus created the first recorded weather vane around 48 BC, so they've been around for a long, long time. It sat on top of the Tower of the Winds in Athens and was designed as a tribute to Triton. It was made from bronze, and it featured the head and torso of a man and the tail of a fish. Now, a wand held in Triton's hand indicated which direction the wind was coming from, and this was a thing. During this period, very wealthy Greek and Romans adorned their homes with wind vanes, or weather vanes, in the shape of ancient gods. Well, I'm not sure the habit of ancient gods being on weather vanes has continued, but I did see a lovely one with a squirrel on it the other day. Which ones have you spotted? Send any pictures of weather vanes to hello@thisisalfred.com and we'll pop them on the website. See you next time on Where in Shaftesbury.
Thank you, Amber. She'll be back again tomorrow. It's Thursday today, which means if you need emergency food packages, you can call into Open House at Father's House between 10 and 12 noon. This evening at 6, Shaftesbury Town Councillors will debate proposals to temporarily pedestrianise the High Street to allow safer social distancing for shoppers. You can watch the council meeting online. We'll bring you the outcome of this evening's meeting tomorrow on the Alfred Daily. You can listen to the programme available on demand from 6 a.m. every day. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. We're going to finish with more wonderful wildlife sounds recorded by Nick Crump. A common blackbird alarm, a call thought to be used when there are young nearby and there's an overhead predator, perhaps a magpie or a crow. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Stay safe, Shaftesbury.